I can't do an interview without coffee, man.
Yeah, don't worry. That's essential. So I get it.
There you go, dude. All right, man. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, whenever you are.
All right, let's do it. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super excited to have you. The Beyond UX Design shop, it's open, ladies and gentlemen. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/shop to pick up some big, beautiful art prints of some of my favorite UX and software-related quotes. Get yourself some digital downloads. You can print them yourself. Pick up your copy of Beyond UX Design. Master your craft beyond pixels and prototypes. Get free shipping on all orders over $30 and use the code LISTENER to get 10% off your entire order. Just head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/shop and get your print on. This week's episode is brought to you by Mento Design Academy, where it's not just about learning UX design, it's about discovering your unique path in it. And Mento inspires students to use their passion as a driving force in their learning, and that is exactly what I've experienced firsthand as a mentor. I've been fortunate enough to guide students who are exploring concepts that they're truly passionate about. It's not just about following a curriculum, it's about shaping that curriculum around what excites each student. And seeing my mentees grow, apply their passions, and craft portfolios that are genuinely them, it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. So if you're looking for a UX course that's as unique as you are, check out Mento Design Academy. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Mento. And just for my listeners, use the promo code BeyondUX200 to get $200 off the course. So join Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. If you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate a 5-star review. That would help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, and Adina for all their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get rough transcripts and exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. And you can get instant access right now for as little as $5 a month. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing here, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. So if you are at any stage in your career, you're probably looking for shortcuts. What's the quickest way to get me from 0 to 1? What's the quickest way to get me a job? What's the quickest way to get me a case study? What's the quickest way to get me a raise, a promotion, whatever it is? Well, I got news for you guys out there. Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. And I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but I've got my good buddy Florian Boelter on the show today. He's got a lot of experience dealing with this, and we're going to talk all about that. I'm so excited to have him on. Florian's a former product manager turned product designer. Came from the dark side to the light side. Currently, he's working as a staff product designer at Juro, a Series B legal tech, helping the world to agree more. He's also the founder of Open Doors, a job board and newsletter specifically made for junior designers and those early in their career. So Florian, welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so excited to have you on. How's it going, man?
Hey, Jeremy, really good to be here. Thank you. Thanks for that nice intro. Yeah, all good, all good. Hope the same goes for you.
No, I'm doing really well. And I'm excited to have a German on the show because I just recently started working with the team in Germany. So I started learning German on Duolingo, and I'm in like lesson, what is it? I don't know. I'm like 4 lessons deep. I've learned how to say tschüss. I've learned how to say beer, and I've learned how to say mutter and broder and tochter and put them together in a sentence. So that's been really fun. It's funny because I was trying to learn a while ago, Hungarian and Polish, and it like fried my brain. And it's really nice to actually, coming from English, which is, a Germanic language, to learn German and actually being able to read and pronounce some of the words it's been fun. So anyway, maybe later we'll have a quick German lesson. We'll go through.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, Florian. So I am so excited to have you on the show today. Before we kick off the conversation, we're going to talk all about there not being shortcuts and you just have to power through. But I am super excited. We're going to be doing a live event. We're going to release this the week of March 3rd. The following week, we are going to meet March 13th at 11:30 Eastern, 3:30 GMT. Check out beyonduxdesign.com/events for some details. We're going to do a live Q&A. What are some things that you want people to be thinking about? Submit those questions early so we got time to answer those questions. What are some things you want people to ask?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for having me, Darian. So I think, this kind of topic, no shortcuts. Basically, I'm telling you, don't try to cheat. A lot of people I know struggle with what to do instead. What is it that I actually need to do? What is it that I need to power through in order to kind of get my career somewhere or get it started in the first place? And I think that applies to many levels. So I'd love questions around, kind of like, which course should I take? Should I do boot camp? Should I get a mentor? Should I, kind of like hope my visual skills? Should I do research? Like, what should I focus on? I mean, it's highly individual, but like generally, kind of to ask around like what for your specific goal you should do. I'm very happy to go down into these kinds of questions, and also career changes. Like a lot of people that come into design are still career changes coming from careers of all sorts. And I frequently get asked questions around, I was a marketer. Like, how can I kind of frame that? How can I, like, what can I leverage here? What kind of skills do I have? This type of stuff. Because these, like, no matter if you're a career changer, if you're a university grad, you still have to put in that work. You still have to kind of go do it. Or even if you are already on the job, like, kind of what can you do on the job too, in order to kind of like progress nicely and like kind of kickstart your career? Is it just fake it until you make it? Well, maybe a little bit, but what can you actually do to kind of like get some substance into your career and into your skills? Those kinds of questions I'm really waiting for. Yeah.
Right on. That's awesome. I love it. So if you want to get your questions in early, check out beyonduxdesign.com/events. There will be a link there. So get your questions in early. We're going to be hanging out March 13th, 11:30 Eastern, 3:30 GMT. You can sign up to register. Can't wait for it. Awesome, man. All right. So Florian, I'm so excited to have you on. I know I read that brief little bio, but tell us a little bit about you and, ultimately, how'd you come to this idea that there are no shortcuts?
Yeah. Okay. Happy to. So yeah, as the intro mentioned, I'm a former product manager. I was a product manager for a year, and then I quit that shit. No, not really. I did actually enjoy the kind of like function in itself, but I realized, this was my first real exposure to design, like in an actual business setting, and I just realized that is so much more what I want to do with my life and like what I want to do. I know a lot of people might not might not or shake their heads right now, but like that just felt like the perfect fit, and I haven't really looked back ever since. Although those skills obviously are still with me, and I actually get to kind of exercise them on a regular basis in my job. Still, like that's kind of where my passion is, design, really. So I transitioned like 5 years ago, roughly, and yeah, that's kind of where I first encountered this. So 5 years ago, that is 2019. So we're right after this kind of like boom in the industry, where like literally every company would hire a UX designer, and you would go and do your boot camp and like come out of it and like have offers on the table. Well, it's a bit exaggerated, right? But like you wouldn't be long out there if your portfolio was at least like halfway decent. And to be fair, I didn't even know about this like at the time when I transitioned from product management to design. I only learned about this later. But I think even in 2024, you can still feel the effects of like this boom, because a lot of people come into the industry thinking, oh, this is like good money here and it seems very easy to do. You just got to do a boot camp, right? And off you go and you get your job. Well, we all know that like both the people just starting out now and the people more experienced, more senior, we all know those times are over and it's not looking like they're coming back. So people kind of like struggle, right? And like they struggle to figure out what to do now. And I think that kind of leads us to the no shortcuts topic, because that's what a lot of people are looking at. I think they shouldn't, because there are none.
Exactly. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned, not funny, I guess it's sort of sad that you mentioned you mentioned early 20s, 2020, pandemic hit and startups were hiring like crazy. Nobody was in an office, so things were remote, so jobs opened up all over the place. You could apply for jobs literally anywhere, working from your home. And over time those jobs started to slowly, go away, layoffs are crazy. There are obviously still jobs available now, but now you've got, just tons of people applying for the same role. And, of course, humans, we get impatient and we want to have immediate gratification. And so everyone's always online looking for the shortcuts. And I'm just curious, like from your perspective, what's been your experience seeing, maybe people you've been mentoring or coaching or even yourself personally chasing those shortcuts? What are the pitfalls of that? What happens when you start to chase the shortcut? What's the negative output of that?
Yeah, so I think the immediate output is like frustration. If you apply those shortcuts you seem to have found, you obviously expect a result, and that result's not going to come. So best case, you're going to get rejections. Worst case, you're just going to get ghosted even because no one's even taking you seriously. And I think it comes in form of like, thinking, okay, I could do one case study, maybe a second one, or I just do some UI screens, put them on a website or on Behance and like, go out into the world and I'm going to get offers. Well, that's probably not even going to net you a response these days. So that's the kind of like immediate thing. But like longer term, and that's, I think, even worse, like both for your for your mental health, but also for like potentially even your finances, depending on like how you're set up. Like the thing is, you waste time on things that actually don't get you anywhere. Because if that's the way you do it, right? Like, and you go out and then you would just mass apply with that like absolutely subpar material, you're wasting time you could spend on like honing your skills, honing your craft, and actually building something that would get you at somewhere. And then when you realize that, then you have to kind of start over. And this is like a major frustration and sometimes feels like, yeah, a complete like pivot or shift in people's lives. I've definitely experienced a few kind of very, desperate people there that realized that everything they did up to until this point, chasing these shortcuts, was kind of for nothing. That hits hard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of think about this. Maybe is not the best analogy, but I kind of think about as someone driving a car, right? Like we can get in the car, turn it on, drive around from point A to point B, and it can get us there. But the minute something goes wrong with the car, you don't know how to fix it because you never learned any of the inner workings of the car. Again, it's maybe not the best analogy because not everybody can become a mechanic. But, it's like one of those things like in your job, like maybe the shortcuts help you when everything is happy path. But how often is UX work or software work in general happy path? There's constantly just like things being thrown at you. I talk about, VUCA and volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and all that stuff. And if you're just like expecting everything to work out perfectly the entire time, the minute something goes wrong, if you've taken shortcuts your entire career, you have no idea how to actually get to the root of the problem and solve it and move forward. And so, I don't know, maybe I need a better analogy, but that's just like my big thing too. It's like you said, it's all kind of just been sort of for nothing. So yeah, I love that. One of the things I'm kind of curious about, a sentiment that I hear a lot, this is interesting because as the job market, you have this downturn, right? You mentioned a minute ago, everything was great a few years ago. Jobs, you finish your boot camp. Here's a job. You get a job. You get a job. Everybody gets a job. Now you get this sentiment. People are starting to get burnt out, right? I did everything I'm supposed to do. Why didn't I get what? Why didn't I get a raise? Why didn't I get a promotion? Why didn't I get blah, blah, blah? Why didn't I get a job offer? And I'm just sort of curious, like from your perspective here, dealing with this yourself or maybe people that you've worked with, what are some ways to sort of get past that? Because I think this is sort of the reason, the heart of the problem, why people are constantly searching for those shortcuts. They want, like I said, that immediate gratification. It doesn't happen and they get frustrated and just want to get over it. I did everything I'm supposed to do. Why didn't I blank? I'm curious, what do you say to people, or what did you do to yourself maybe? What did you do yourself when you were in this situation? Trying to get past that to just say like, I got to learn the stuff. The shortcuts aren't helping.
I mean, double down on that stuff. That's the first thing, right? Like, especially if it's, for example, a skill gap that you have, like where it's really clear, like, okay, like I'm getting rejected all the time. And you gotta just find out what the problem is first. That's probably the very first thing before you even double down. Probably, yeah, it's better because that's one of the things, for example, I see with mentees. So they come to me, they show me the portfolio, and I can see, there's probably some work to be done here, but I'm like not always immediately sure like where exactly the problem lies. So one thing that I tell them is like, get some analytics. Let's see where people drop off. Let's take a look at the roles you apply to and what they kind of ask for. And then let's see how we can kind of make sense of it by looking at the behavior people kind of like display on your portfolio and where maybe, are gaps. And so you get to the problem, but it doesn't have to be the job search or your portfolio or anything. Could also be, your development in a role, right? Like you're waiting for that promotion, it's not happening. So try to find out why. In that case, it might be easier. It might just be talk to your manager very candidly and like actually ask, like, what do I suck at so much that you won't promote me? And I mean, sometimes it isn't even a skill, right? Like sometimes it's the like phase the companies in, they don't have budget to kind of promote on a regular basis or whatever, but they try to find out, because that, for example, is something you can do very little about, right? If the economics don't fit and there's just no promotion in for you there for at least another year or something, but it will still help you to plan your next step. You will get clarity and you will not sit there and ask yourself, why is it me? What's the problem? You have to kind of communicate and try to get to the ground of it. So that's the very first essential step. And sometimes I get people that say, yeah, but I did everything I was supposed to do. Well, what were you supposed to do? And then they tell me very shallow things that kind of come from like common beliefs that you find on LinkedIn or Instagram or something about what you need to do in order to. But those are it's always generic advice, right? So it never applies to a particular situation. So you've got to find out for yourself what in your situation might be the problem. And I'm saying that as if it was easy. It isn't always very easy. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's literally just talking to one person for 10 minutes or something. So go and do that. But sometimes it involves a few more steps, obviously. And then once you did that, like double down on it. Like, for example, one thing that came like very easy to me were like strategic skills, like everything I was like, and also technical things. Like that was something I already brought into my design career. Like I was already quite good at that. So there was no need for me immediately to kind of like focus on that. But my visual skills, like I never had any kind of job I had to do like, design on a visual level, so to speak. I think the last thing for me was like a major in art in high school. And that was at that point, I think 10 years ago or something. So there was a lot for me to catch up on, like, visual hierarchy, all the different laws that we have, when it comes to the visual part. And all of these things. And I just doubled down on that stuff. And I'm actually still working on that. Like, that's still kind of I think my biggest weakness. Like, I think generally I'm a generalist and I do everything kind of like at a good level based on my kind of like, level of where I'm at in my career. But still, I feel like this is the thing that I'm worse at. So I saw that and I just doubled down, learned all that stuff, practiced in Figma or whatever. Like back then it was even still Sketch sometimes. Like learned everything, tried to produce as much UI as I could to just double down and get that quality up in my portfolio. And lo and behold, like that helped. The internship came in, and then in that internship, I had another opportunity to kind of level that up. And then the first interviews came in, and then the first offers came in. And so it that works. But obviously, you have to first get to the point where you realize, I suck at this. Like that's the thing I'm not good at yet. But because people very often think I do this boot camp and I will all have all the skills that I need. For example, like, or I do this, I don't know, learn a development in my role. Like I use my budget, buy a book and like do a couple of things and then I'm kind of set for the next level. That's often like misleading. And that's actually this kind of subconscious wish for shortcuts, I think. Because we tend to naturally gravitate towards that. I do that myself every day. Like obviously I try to do things as easily as possible. Like I try to spend as like a little time as possible on stuff that I don't truly enjoy. So I look for shortcuts. But yeah, I think with your career, especially in design, it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. As you're saying this, I'm sort of thinking about this idea of, treating yourself like a product you're trying to sell. And essentially that is what we're doing, right? We're selling our labor to a company who wants to pay us for our time. Even if we're full-time, we're not consulting, that's still a transaction there. And you're only as valuable as that company is willing to pay for that service that you can provide. And when you're kind of talking about this, what I'm thinking in my head is, you went and you found where there were gaps, just like you would any other product you're trying to build. We don't have product market fit. What do we need to do? Right? If you don't have product market fit, you need to find the features that fit the market. So if that's the case and we're treating ourselves like that, we need to think about ourselves. What's the product market fit? Where am I trying to go? Being strategic with your career. Where do I want to go? What do those people want? What can I do? Where are the gaps? And what do I need to learn to get there? And, that's something that I think when we think about, you mentioned boot camps, like I hate to rip on boot camps. I work with a boot camp. I work with Mento. And I love the fact that you can get in there relatively cheaply, get a curriculum and a plan and start. But one of the things that I always, always, always have to stress with my mentees is you are not done in 6 months. And that is, I hate to blame boot camps and say boot camps are shortcuts and stuff, but because I think it's a great foundation. But that is like one of the biggest thing is, that idea that you've got to understand that you're getting a foundation. And then when you are done, there will be gaps. And where can you find the additional things and learn those things? So I'm curious from your perspective. You said you didn't go to boot camp or anything, right? You're self-taught, right?
Oh no. I did actually go to a boot camp as well.
So you don't need to name it, but I'm curious when you were done, how did you approach that? Is that sort of one of those things where it took you a little bit of time to realize like, hey, there are a bunch of gaps here. This was maybe I was trying to use this as a shortcut, but it wasn't sufficient. I'm curious how you found those. First, how'd you come to that realization? And then from there, how did you realize like you had to go fill the gaps? And then, from there, what did you do? That's a big question, by the way. Maybe we could break it up.
I mean, I'm going to give the dickhead answer first because I just know this stuff. No, I think I'm pretty, I'm reflecting a lot. That's kind of part of my personality, of my traits, I think. So even before I started that boot camp, I already reflected on my skills and on kind of what do I need to learn here in order to succeed. So I didn't have deep insights into the market or into the industry at that point, but I did, see the kind of differences in UX and UI. Those were also the distinctions in my bootcamp. You had to pick major, so to speak, like a main course. And so I had to make the decision, do I pick UX or do I pick UI? And at that point I reflected, okay, everything that I see in the curriculum for UX, a lot of it is familiar to me. Some of it I've even kind of practiced in my last role a little bit as a product manager, whilst the UI bit was entirely new. And at that point back then, I already saw from the outside that there was this kind of gravitational shift towards product design and a more holistic kind of role, which I, by the way, also enjoy very much. So I knew that. And so I saw, okay, this is the stuff I don't know, so I got to learn that. It seems essential, so I got to learn that and make sure that I catch up on it. So reflect, really think about in past roles or in university, wherever you come from. Doesn't matter if you come from a bootcamp university or whatever, because it's the same for university graduates, really. I do the same with them. If they are my mentees, it's kind of the same process. Just think about which courses did you first of all enjoy? That's also a big part of it. It's not only about what you can do, also what you enjoy doing. For example, I can distill data, I think, quite well, and really work well with data, but I would never go into a research only role because I don't enjoy it enough. So Also think about that. But just generally, think about what did you kind of get good grades in, where did you get good feedback, or what felt natural to you doing it, and what were the things where you were fuck, how do I do this? And then very unsure when you handed it in, how people are gonna perceive it and what kind of feedback you're gonna get. Those are the things to kind of look at first. So I think that's very, very important to kind of look at and really think about. So, and then when I came out of the boot camp, I had that expectation that, it's not going to be that hard. it might not be kind of like a walk in the park because I never try to never approach things like they're just gonna kind of be handed to me. Like I never assume that for anything really. And then but then, even with that kind of mentality, I was a little underwhelmed by, well, I would say by the response, but there was no response in the first place. There was nothing really. And think about like that was 2020 where everything was booming. So we were already in a market where, kind of I was actually quite dealt good cards, I'd say. But yeah, still nothing. So went back and like obviously I had a mentor, so that helped massively to accelerate the thing. So if someone like early in their career is listening, I can't, overstate how important it can be to have someone on your side that helps you kind of navigate these things because you can get lost in it. So yeah, at that person, and we figured it out together. And kind of we looked at things, what's like objectively in my portfolio, like what's the weakest thing, like without judging it, what's the weakest part of it? Visuals. Well, the visuals. So okay, let's go revisit those case studies, see like what type of things we can enhance or I can enhance, and like what do I need to learn in order to do this. And then yeah, I had a plan. And I was able to kind of like go through it step by step, learn all that stuff, to practice again, and then make it better.
I love that, dude. And you mentioned something too, I think is worth highlighting as we are talking about shortcuts is mentors. It's so funny because I get messages like this all the time. Will you be my mentor? Like, it's just that simple to just, will you be my mentor? Like, it's this weird little dynamic here. Like, I am master, you are student, like we're going to like hang out on like a mountain somewhere and just like all day I'm going to like mentor you. It's just an interesting sort of question. And to me, that's sort of like an example of like one of these shortcuts. Instead of going out and trying to build relationships with people, there should never even really be a conversation like, or a question, will you be my mentor? Like it should just be a relationship that evolves over time. And I don't want to fault like places like ADP List because I don't think ADP List is necessarily the root cause of this. They're providing a great service, but I think the way that people use services like ADP List are probably not as helpful as they could be, because you could use a source like a place like ADP List to find those relationships, but it's not going to be as simple as one 30-minute phone call with somebody over Zoom or whatever. And so anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts there about like, because you mentioned the importance of finding a mentor. I'm curious when it comes to avoiding shortcuts as it relates to finding a mentor. You had one, I guess, through your boot camp, but do you have any advice for people who might be thinking, a service like ADP List is the place to go? That's probably a shortcut that is probably not going to be helpful at the end of the day. What would be a great way, like a real way, to find mentors that can help you with this?
Yeah. It's a very good one. I'm glad we're talking about that because so sometimes I get messages, people on LinkedIn mostly, because I'm not on ADP List myself. I try to like do mentoring. I try to like steer that myself and like who's gonna, book and everything. So people come to me and say, can you give me advice on like how to get traction or like how to get interviews or like can you kind of basically tell me how I can get a job? And I'm like, well, yeah, I can, but this won't be like a paragraph, all right? This will be like a process. And it'll take weeks or even months. And we're going to have to work together to kind of get there. And I won't be able to share any secrets with you because there are none. But I will share knowledge with you that you might not have. But I won't share any kind of like industry secret that is just very, hidden and only senior people know about or something like that.
Yeah.
So
kind of esoteric thing, we found the secret knowledge and
exactly the holy grail. Yeah, the holy grail of getting a job. Yeah, no, that doesn't exist. So I tell people, well, in order to really help you, like I can give you some general advice on like what the industry is like right now, or like what most companies would be looking for. And also looking at your portfolio, I can give you some top level advice and whatever. It's cool. Usually I even do that for free sometimes. But that's not what's going to get you a job. And that's not even what's going to get you, going from 0 interviews to 1 interview, because it always comes down to what particular situation you are in, like what you need, what type of person you are, what kind of background you have, and all of these things. So it's highly personal. And it just requires someone working with you. So the first thing when you're looking for mentorship is do not expect this to be a one-off transaction. That's like if you book someone for one session, no matter if it's on ADP list or if you pay for it, you can pay $1,000 for a mentoring session and it's probably not gonna get you anywhere substantially. If you pay $1,000, I'd expect at least a little bit of something. But anyway, you have to get away from that image. Like you have to see this as like a long-term kind of thing or at least a longer term kind of thing to get somewhere, because you need to first sit down and analyze a little bit, then craft a strategy and then execute that strategy. So yeah, expect that. Then make sure that you find a good fit. So there's a lot of designers out there that offer mentorship. Some do it more professionally, some do it a bit more casually to kind of get experience with it. I'm generally glad that there is such a wide offering these days. Like I think before ADP list came around, it was probably very hard and probably also extremely expensive to find a mentor. Now you have like a much bigger pool to source from, which is great. But obviously, the people who do it for free, they are usually less likely to commit to you as an individual for a longer time. So I would probably consider to look for someone who seems like they're interested in making this, a longer term kind of thing. With that, you got to pick someone who's kind of like either has like a background that's similar to yours, maybe. So they've been through maybe similar things and they might have a similar profile to you. So for example, if you're a career changer and you come from a marketing background, maybe you find someone that, came from a marketing background a couple of years ago as well. That can always help. Like it doesn't necessarily need to help, but I think it's a good first kind of answer. And obviously you need to vibe with that person, like to a certain extent, right? Like there's so many different styles out there, like how people do things. And get to know each other and don't just pick the first person that says yes, right? Like pick someone that you dig the vibe, like someone where you feel like that's kind of like the advice they give, like that's something I can work with and it's kind of fitting my style. So I think those are probably the most general things I can say about this. There's certainly more to it about, like kind of how to action things for mentorship sessions and all those things. But yeah, I think that's kind of like the general gist of it or of what I would recommend to people.
All right. Sorry for the interruption in the middle of the interview, but it is time for a mid-roll sponsor break. Let's hear it from our sponsor this week, Wix Studio. Web designers, let's talk about the C word, creative burnout. Your client site has real portfolio potential, but between resourcing, feedback, tight budgets, and even tighter deadlines, it just doesn't make the cut. Wix Studio helps close that gap. Built for agencies and enterprises, you can bring your vision to life and keep it alive. With no-code animations, tons of AI tools, reusable design assets, and advanced layout tools. For your next project, check out wixstudio.com. That's wixstudio.com. And now, back to the show. When I think about mentors, there's obviously other designers who are mentors. But there could also be just other people that have nothing to do with design. As a designer, you would learn a ton from them, and so it could be people in your life. It could be, a trusted friend, a family member, somebody that has experience professionally, because a lot of times this is true, I think, for most professions. We've got a set of hard skills that we need to learn and understand. And obviously a designer is going to help you there. But dealing with people at work, right? I mean, you could talk to anybody in any profession to understand power dynamics and, how interpersonal skills and problems dealing with a difficult coworker and things like that are things that you could learn from almost anywhere. It doesn't have to, and that's probably not something you're going to learn from ADP list, I would imagine. Depends on the person, obviously. But, that's something that I think a lot of designers, they forget that. And then even, this is when you don't have a job, obviously it's very hard to find people that aren't designers professionally. But when you have a job, let's say you're, mid-level, junior, whatever, you have a job at a company, there are people at that company that you could reach out to that absolutely could become mentors. If you're struggling, for instance, with you're struggling with understanding the business. I don't know, whatever. Everybody learn the business, right? That's like advice everybody always gets. How do you learn the business? Well, you talk to other people that work at your company and you understand how the business works. So, I mean, you could talk to the sales team to understand how they sell, the marketing team, maybe, I don't know, the customer success, customer support team, the customer experience team, whatever they call it, where you work. Those are things as a designer, your boss is never going to schedule that meeting for you, but you can absolutely reach out, Teams, Slack, whatever you use. Hey, we're working on this thing. I'm struggling with this. I think your insights would be really valuable. Can we schedule 30 minutes to talk? And if you find that you hit it off, schedule another 30 minutes, schedule another 30 minutes, schedule another 30 minutes. And over the course of 6 months, a year, however, you've now built a relationship with this person. You can probably ping them and go to them advice. They're probably more willing to be open and honest with you. And, so these are things that I think a lot of designers, we're so stuck on the title of designer, and I only want to talk to other designers, and you're missing out on all of that other stuff. And, it's just relationships. I mean, mentor relationship is a relationship like any other relationship. You could obviously pay to coach and you get an instant relationship because there's a transaction there. But there could also be relationships that just you're paying with time. You're talking and I use this analogy all the time of like the growing an avocado tree for you want to have avocado toast for brunch. There's no shortcut there. It takes a very long time to grow avocados, and you got to plant those trees. You got to nurture the trees. You got to water the trees. They got to grow over time. Some of them might die. Animals might eat some of the avocado. So many things happen here, but you've got to plant it, and you've got to, there's no shortcuts. I guess when it comes out, you could go to the store and buy an avocado from the store, I guess. Maybe this is another. I'm like half analogies this today. I'm not on it with the analogies. Anyway, maybe that's going to, I guess that example, that's going and paying for coaching. But anyway, I don't know. I just love that idea though of thinking beyond that immediate, like we're going to build a relationship tomorrow. I don't know if you have any thoughts, but
I don't think that analogy is too bad because if you put it into the design world, like the avocado in the store could just be too expensive for you. You only have money for the seeds. So, and you have to grow it yourself. So I don't think that is as bad as you thought it is. Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, like I love what you said about picking people, for example, if you work in a company from different teams. So one of the first things I did when I joined the company I'm with now is I had a bunch of intro calls to people, from other teams that was kind of set up. But in those intro calls, I look for the people that, kind of vibe with best. And at the end of the meeting, I would say, what do you think? Could we kind of set up a one-on-one just like monthly or something? So we kind of keep in touch and like kind of exchange thoughts a little bit. And they all love that. And with every single one of them, I now have like one-on-one set up, or at least once a month. So there's people from customer success, people from engineering, people from sales, people from support that I now get to interact with and talk both private and work stuff about. So if there's, for example, something that I just want to know for something I'm working on, from their perspective, I can just run it by them casually without having to kind of go through any business channel or whatever. And that is like, that nets is so much because you learn so much. And the other thing that you shouldn't forget is you can give back as well in that relationship, right? Like they are also interested in what you are doing. Like they are interested to learn more about like how you design the product, for example, how certain decisions were made designing a product and all of that stuff. So never think of it as a one-way street there. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, that's like, it's relationships. This is also something where there are no shortcuts. Yeah, I can go to you and ask you, would you be my friend today? But like, you might say yes because you're a nice guy, right? But like obviously it would be better if we finished this chat and had a beer together and like just had a nice conversation. And there's no shortcut to that. You gotta talk to people, you gotta do the thing, and you gotta be a good human in that case and like kind of vibe with each other. Otherwise there's nothing that can kind of bring you there. And I think it's the same in the job search, for example, like I always come back to this because this is kind of like what I mostly deal with, like juniors trying like in their job search. But you have to find also the company that you vibe with really well. Like that's a thing a lot of people forget. Like they are like, this job, like that's mine. Like the job description looks so good. And then they have an interview maybe. And then I talk to them after that interview and they say, well, so yeah, like generally it looks all good, but like the person interviewing me was a bit weird. Like I don't feel, but I still think this is the job. And I'm like, hold on, like you shouldn't quit here. But like let this be a little red flag. Like, next interview, please check if you still think the people you're talking to are weird. Because if that's the case, that's not going to go away. Like, that's not something you just kind of like, toughen up and get through it or something. This is the start of potentially a horrible experience for you. So please, like, be careful. Make sure you ride with them. And again, like, no shortcuts there. You gotta know, gotta get to know the people, gotta get to know the job, and then you find out if it's a fit. But obviously, in the current situation, like, the thing that makes it so hard is like so many people are desperate, which I get, like, for many reasons, right? And they're just like grasping for straws. They just want to have something and think, push through it. But there's like things coming out at the other end that probably not worth that.
Dude, absolutely, 100%. And it's, we're talking a lot, we spent a lot of time just in the last like 10, 15 minutes talking about mentorship and relationships. But I think the thing I want to like stress, and I think you'd stress this too, is that a lot of times these relationships unlock a lot of those other things that we're talking about, specifically around gaps and understanding where you need to, plug those gaps and fill those holes. And often it's very hard for us to do that self-reflection, because I mean, like, you use your portfolio as an example. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I'm self-taught. I never went to design school. So for me, learning visual design was a challenge, 15, 20 years ago when I started. And if I look at some of the stuff I designed in like the early 2000s, it is awful. It is absolutely awful. But at the time, I thought it was great. That's the thing. At the time, I thought it was great. And so, if you're doing that self-reflection, having that relationship with somebody who is willing to be open and honest with you can help you identify those things that you do need to go and work on. And so I just want to sort of reiterate that. I think that's so important. So we talked a lot about mentorship, but I just think that mentorship piece unlocks so much of the other stuff that we're talking about. It's so hard to do that. And also the other thing too, it's kind of interesting, is I wonder how many people don't realize they're taking shortcuts. They just think this is like, the way to go. And this is sort of like leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is social media and, the rise of TikTok and YouTube videos and short 30-second clips about UX design. I want to preface this by saying I have no problems with TikTok. People posting stuff to TikTok, it's great. I love it. It's wonderful. It's probably a great way to learn little tidbits and snippets of information. But at the end of the day, it's so compressed, it's impossible to really get too deep into the weeds and actually understand. I'm curious from your perspective, because I know we're both on LinkedIn and social media content and stuff. I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, how do you approach social media, or how do you advise people to approach social media when it comes to learning things?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing that's missing when you look at social media, because everything is kind of condensed. Even if you have like a longer post on LinkedIn, that's still, compared to like, an actual book on like UX, for example, it's like nothing, right? Like, you can read it in 10 minutes and be done with it. It's lacking context. So someone throws you a strategy. Someone says you can get there by doing these 5 steps. And then they list 5 steps with like, in a bullet point, basically. And you take this away and you think, oh, this is going to solve my problem, so I'm going to apply it. But like, first of all, you're very often missing all the details that you need to actually execute this properly. But it's also kind of missing the context of like, what kind of situation do you need to be in for this to even work out in the first place? So, and like I said earlier, people are grasping for straws right now. So they are taking everything they kind of find and just try to assess like, what is the one that probably gives me the best outcome with the least amount of time spent right now. And like, try to catch yourself doing that. Like, if you feel like you're reading a LinkedIn post, maybe by me, that says these 5 steps are going to get you the job, like, take it with a grain of salt and just try to extract what actually might apply to your current situation. So I always, when I post, and I currently mainly only do LinkedIn content, and I have my newsletter over on Open Doors. When I do this, I always try to frame like who this is for and what kind of problem you might be facing that this solution is great for. And even further, I try to like put disclaimers in for like, maybe for who this isn't a good idea. So for example, like I said earlier, when I like do mentorship, I have like 2 groups. I have these career changers like myself or you, and I have university graduates. While they all have the same goal. They somewhat come with different kind of prerequisites, I guess, in terms of like what they have in terms of experience and skills. And so I try, when I talk about these strategies, try to make sure that I clearly point out if something would work better for a university graduate or for a career changer, and then also offer an alternative for the other group, obviously, if possible. But this is I think something like, always try to put the things you see into context, into your own context, and see if that actually can apply, and if this could actually kind of like help you right now, or if you're just going down a rabbit hole that's not going to lead you anywhere really, for just for you in particular. So I think that's the main problem of it. And I still do this myself. Like I still catch myself sometimes scrolling LinkedIn and seeing, kind of a nice, I don't know, video or on like how to do a specific effect in Figma or whatever. And I'm like, oh, this looks great. Like, I haven't done that before. Maybe I should. And then I'm like, it's like, even like, what's the point to it? I mean, sure, you can hone your skills, right? Like, you can just practice a little bit, and then maybe at some point it comes in handy, which is great, but it is a distraction. You probably have a goal right now. You probably have something that you really want to get done, you really want to get to right now, and rather look for things that actually help you get there. So when I like kind of like write down things that I want to like learn or do in the next couple of weeks or months, I always check them against my current goals, like career goals or like side project goals, and see like, can they actually contribute to that, and then make a decision based on that. And that's maybe how you should approach content on social media as well.
Yeah, and I love the idea too of just thinking about it as like just like you do the bootcamp. It's scratching the surface. You are never going to get a deep understanding of any discipline, of any topic, by watching a quick 60-second video on YouTube or TikTok or wherever. And I most people that you would talk to, content creators, I think are probably would be the first to admit this is meant to be a deep, not a deep dive. This is meant to be just a very cursory thing. And I think when you view that as like, oh, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, even if they're 20 minutes long, that's still just barely scratching the surface. And I think as somebody learning any skill, I can't watch a 20-minute video on YouTube about woodworking and claim to be, an expert craftsman, a carpenter. You have to take that same approach. And, I think this is again where, that mentor can kind of help level set. Because it's sort of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, and you reach the peak of Mount Stupid, right? And you're like, oh, I know everything there is to know. And it isn't until someone actually like shakes you and is like, wait, hold on, there's all this other stuff that you realize you don't know. And it isn't to like anyone's fault, I don't think. I think it's just sort of one of those things. The other thing you mentioned about context on posts, I think there's a lot of people that I love that do this, but the one I'm thinking off the top of my head is Aneta Kmiecic, who posts quite a bit about portfolios. And she always has a disclaimer. This is my experience. This is my thing. This worked for me. These are things I've seen work for other people. Be very careful with what you do and how you do it and what you're going to change on your portfolio. So, as someone who's consuming that content, I think like be on the lookout for stuff like that. Be on the lookout for like people who are making these big, broad claims that you're going to get ahead in X amount of time, and just be aware that, some of that stuff is just there to maybe sell you some shit. They're trying to sell you crap or something, which is nothing wrong with that, but just be aware of that as the consumer, right?
Yeah, that's the thing there, right? Like, if you, sorry to disenchant content here. I mean, I do it myself to a certain extent, right? But like, very often, like you said, these are surface level things that kind of like hint at the solution, but they're actually meant to get you deeper and like actually end up with like you buying the product that this creator probably has put out. Usually it's a course or mentoring or whatever.
Which is in itself meant to be a shortcut.
Yeah, exactly. Like it, but this might like, and that's the thing. So what I try to do then is like, when I see that my content from someone resonates with me a lot, and like I see myself like reading this or even waiting for posts sometimes from people, for specific people. But like, obviously the content is still, surface level, but that tells me that something tells me to go deeper there. Like, because I'm interested in this, and like they seem to attack a lot of problems that, I'm interested in, I'm maybe facing. So go deeper and actually kind of double down on that person then, and maybe look at what they have to offer beyond this kind of shallow surface content, and see if, you can take a course with them or you can book mentorship with them. Those might just be the people that actually kind of can get you somewhere without the shortcut. Because again, if you buy that course, you have to actually do it and take it and go through it. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of having bought courses that I didn't do, but well, then maybe they were not, the problem wasn't big enough at that point. But anyway, like it's okay to kind of like fall for that kind of content, but make sure to follow up with it. Like, make sure to kind of ask yourself, why did this resonate with me? What might be the underlying thing I'm looking for? And can I maybe kind of like dive deeper into it and like get somewhere actually, instead of like kind of doom scrolling, basically, because that's what we end up with, right? But most of the creators out there, they offer more. And most of the creators I know offer quality stuff, like beyond the surface. They do. Some sell shit for sure. But like the people that I follow, and whenever I did end up buying something from someone, I didn't regret that, because they had a promise, and for me, they always delivered. I mean, obviously, always check for yourself. Make sure you kind of really know why you're getting something or why you're getting help. But yeah, like explore beyond that surface level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the big thing to remember with like all of this, any shortcut, is you only get out what you put in. And if you expect a shortcut and you just put in the bare amount of work, the bare minimum, just to get there faster, you're getting out what you put in. And so don't expect some revelation at the end of a shortcut and this like sudden dose of wisdom somehow. You're only going to get out what you put in, whether that's a course, whether that's a book, whether that's, I mean, even like a LinkedIn post. Because I will be honest, dude, like I've read like posts on LinkedIn and stuff. I'm not on TikTok, so I can't say I've learned a lot from TikTok, but like LinkedIn is an example. There are people that have posted and I have actually got a lot out of the 3,000 characters in a post, and it's an insightful post and it's great. And so I don't want to like diminish that. I think there are a lot of people that post really great content. I think it's just, you get out what you put in, and that's such an important thing to think about. All right, Florian, this has been an amazing conversation. Before we get out of here today, I got a few questions I'd like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. But before we get into that, let's give our live event a shout out next week. We're going to be hanging out March 13th, 11:30 Eastern, 3:30 GMT. You can find more information at beyonduxdesign.com/events, links to register and all that stuff. So before we get into those questions, one more time, real quick, what are some things that you want some people to be thinking about asking you on that live Q&A?
Yeah, good one, Jeremy. I'm a bit of a dick to just say, there's no shortcuts, go do your stuff. But what is the actual stuff? Because I do know that a lot of people, especially those early in their career, wonder. But even people further in their career, I guess, like mid-level, when I progress to senior, like what is it that I do have to put in? What is it that I have to do in order to get there? So if people have questions around that, I'm very happy to answer that. That can be, should I take a course? Should I upskill in a certain area? Should I do a boot camp? Should I have a mentor? All of these kinds of things, like those are the things that I'm very happy to go deep on. And while it's heavily individual, I think I'm going to be able to kind of give you an opinion on those things. And also, for career changes, we still have a lot of career changes going into design. Like, how can I maybe leverage what I already have from a past career, right? Like I was a marketer. What can I do? What to focus on? What do I maybe already bring? And what do I have to kind of like substitute for to kind of get some substance into my career and into my skills? Yeah, those kinds of things I'm really looking forward to kind of like answer. Obviously, everything else that might come to mind around, no cheat codes being available there. Everything else that comes to mind, I'm happy to answer too.
I love it. I cannot wait to get into that. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that conversation. So get your questions in early. beyonduxdesign.com/events. Hang out with us live March 13th, 11:30 Eastern, 3:30 GMT. Can't wait. Going to be awesome. All right, Florian, we've been talking to you for a little bit now. Before we get into those questions, any closing thoughts, any final insights on the idea of there are no shortcuts? Anything you want to let people know before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think the only thing, like the gist of all of this is like kind of like reflect on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and make sure that you're kind of like the steps you're taking are actually leading you or have the potential to lead you where you want to go, and like don't fall for any traps. Like do a self check-in every now and then, and like make sure that you don't fall for these shortcuts. And whenever someone tries to sell you something that says this is going to get you there in 7 days, like doubt it. And basically stay away from it, I think, in general, because at least when it comes to design, no matter if that's getting your first job, if that's getting your promotion or acquiring a certain skill, I think all of these things take time. They do by nature. And if you rush it, the best you're going to end up with is like some half-baked stuff. And usually that doesn't get you anywhere. So yeah, check in on yourself and make sure you're aware of that.
I love it. Good stuff, dude. All right, man. So I've got a series of questions that I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First thing that comes to your mind, you don't have to think too hard about it. These are pretty simple. They're not meant to stump you. First up, what's your favorite non-design book?
Oh God, it's really hard to tell because so we didn't talk about this. I was a product manager, right? But before that, I have a master's degree in German literature. I've read a lot of books, I guess, but actually, it's not like I can't settle for one book. But I do like one author very much. I do like Haruki Murakami, a Japanese author. He's quite big. I think probably most people or many people will recognize him. But I like all of his works, really. Like I've never read a bad book written by him. And I do enjoy his work a lot. And yes, definitely a big recommendation, especially if you're into Japan and like Japanese culture. But even if you're not, still a big recommendation.
I love that. So German literature, huh? That was like, you said you had a master's in it?
Yeah, like I did study German and philosophy in my bachelor's and my undergraduate, and then I doubled down on German literature. Tried to kind of get into academics, but then midway through the master's realized that academics are kind of messed up, like in terms of working conditions and all that. Like it took me a while to realize that. But then I decided, no, I'm gonna go into tech, I think, and try to do that because I've always had an affinity for that as well. So it worked out apparently, but but yeah,
that's awesome, man. I could probably talk to you for like an hour just about the transition from from German literature to tech. That's an interesting transition, man.
Yeah, that's a bit of that.
All right. Next up, what's your favorite non-design podcast?
Yeah. So listen to a lot of podcasts, but I think my favorite one and the one that I've been listening to for the longest time is Criminal the host is Phoebe Judge. And I think NPR is the station that's putting it out. So it's basically a podcast about everything that has to do with, basically criminality. But it's not like a normal true crime podcast or anything. They do cover some of these things as well. But very often it's also about law, incarceration, all of these kinds of things. And the host is just so nice to listen to. She's just got such a good voice, such a good talking voice, and you just like listening to her, no matter what she's talking about, really. But yeah, it's great content, and definitely check that out. It's a great podcast.
Yeah, hell yeah, yeah. I've listened. I think I've only listened to 1 or 2 episodes of Criminal, but it is really good. The storytelling element of it is really good. I love that.
Yeah,
stuff. That
and like great story.
This American Life and all that. They do such a good job. All right, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you've cooked, something your grandma used to cook, restaurant, or whatever. Favorite meal?
Oh, yeah. So, tough one, but I think it's ramen because ramen I think I've never ate bad ramen. I mean, I know there's supposed to be bad ramen, but never had any. And it's just an amazing dish. No matter where, like what city I am, what country I am, when I'm there for multiple days, I always try to find like a good ramen shop there, because it always makes me happy. And there's just something comforting about like a good broth and some noodles.
I love it, dude. Yeah, back in high school, I used to eat, instant ramen all the time. It was like, I would buy, actually, it's funny, for Christmas, my friends and I, we did this was like 1999. We all had I think $10 to our names. So we were like, all right, we're going to spend like $10 on each person. And, one of my friends bought me $10 worth of instant ramen packets, which at the time were probably 25 cents a piece. Anyway, it was like a grocery basket, like full of ramen noodles. But it wasn't until I was actually older and I actually had real ramen, I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing my whole life, But yeah, the like actual ramen, like real ramen. Oh my God, it's so good, dude. I love it with like the egg in it and like all the stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. But I still eat instant ramen occasionally. Not only
for
occasionally,
sure.
actually quite often. So I'm still guilty
I
of
love
that.
it, dude. All right. What's your favorite vacation spot?
I mean, I'm based in Europe, so there's like a lot of nice places here, I'd say. But like vacation in particular, like I grew very fond of Greece, specifically the island coast. It's like a really nice spot. We try to go there like every year, especially now I have kids. So it's like, easier than doing like a city trip or something. And so, yeah, Greece is something like the food, the water, the beaches, everything is just like spot on for me, like exactly the way I like it. And so I think, yeah, that's my favorite spot.
Man, I'm so jealous. Yeah, I've never been to Greece. I would love to go to Greece. That's just, it's on my bucket list. But
well, have you been to, like, let me think, have you been to Hawaii, for example? Hawaii?
I've never been to Hawaii. No.
Okay. Well,
it's so far away, man. Yeah, it's
yeah. But still, I hear people, for people in the US, it's a lot more accessible than it is for me. So that would be one where I'd be very jealous. Or I don't know, Mexico as well, for example.
I've been to Mexico. Yeah, actually. So I used to live in New Orleans and it was like a 3-hour flight. It was like such a quick flight. There was actually a nonstop from New Orleans to Cancun. And if you look at it on a map, it's like so close, man. Yeah. And it was a really short flight. But like for Hawaii, I actually live in Cincinnati now. And for us to go to Hawaii would be almost as long as to go to Europe. And it would probably be more expensive because the tickets are more expensive, or the tickets are about the same price from like Hawaii to Europe. But once you get to Europe, it's relatively inexpensive compared to Hawaii. So, true, and it's, the US dollars in Hawaii, it's like, it still doesn't go very far.
I know,
I'm jealous. But yeah, I actually know, I've talked to a lot of people who live like out in California, and they like, that's like a relatively short flight there, and the flights aren't nearly as expensive. But I got to fly like all the way across the country before I even get on a plane to fly all the way across the Pacific to Hawaii.
Right.
So it's anyway, one day it's on my list. Greece, I'd probably if I had to pick, I'd go to Greece before I went to Hawaii, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, you can definitely get a lot of bang for your buck in Greece, I think. That's
for sure.
I mean, the flight's still going to cost you, but like everything else, I think it should be pretty affordable, especially compared to Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anywhere cheap in Hawaii. Maybe like one of the tiny little islands or something is off the beaten path, maybe. But like, yeah, anywhere in like the popular spots, no way. It's like freaking ridiculous. All right. Last question. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Good question. So generally Framer, like I love how they revolutionized like the kind of, like website builder and like making it quite seamless to go from like, Figma to something that's actually live on the web and actually also being able to leverage code. But not so recently, but for a while now, I've been working with a tool called Lottie Lab, which is, Lottie's animation files. And you used to have to like basically know After Effects, which is a hell of a tool, in my opinion, like an absolute hell. And you would used to have to know that in and out to produce these kind of animations. And Lottie Lab broke it down completely and like made it so easy and approachable and like such a low threshold. And ever since then, I've started like really crafting interactions and like, little animations for the product that I wouldn't have been able to produce like a couple of years ago without tools like that, because it would have meant that I would have had to double down on like After Effects, which, is a nice thing to do, all right? But it's not easy. And like, if I were to get into motion design, obviously I would have done that. But like, I'm a product designer and I try to have like a generalist skill set. And this tool really opened that up for me. So I'm really thankful for it. And I think the guys deserve a big shout out because I've been using that product for like, ever since they had their first alpha. They approached me and I've been testing for them for a long time. And now they are like live and even launched on Product Hunt multiple times, got serious investment now. And I'm so glad for them because they really deserve it, because they built an absolutely great tool that can do so much more. That's been pushing boundaries. So yeah, that's my favorite design tool. That's not Figma.
That's awesome, dude. But it's interesting because tying this back to the topic today, which is shortcuts. If you're a designer, right, you need to find a way to be able to do that thing and get that output as quickly as possible. That's not necessarily a shortcut, right? That's just a tool that helps you do a thing. But if you're a motion designer and you don't understand After Effects, there's a problem. So it's all like the context, right? Like if you're a motion designer relying on something like Lottie files Lottie to do that work because you don't want to learn After Effects, that's an issue. But as a designer, that's not, I wouldn't consider, So anyway, I don't know. I'm just kind of tying that back. It's just kind of interesting because it's all about context.
That's really great. I love that you're doing that because it sounded like I took a shortcut there, right? Like just getting a new tool that kind of makes learning all that stuff obsolete and makes me put in less time. Well, to a certain degree, I think it's true. It is a shortcut compared to what it used to be. But the underlying things, for example, knowing what easing is, knowing how transitions work and how motion generally works, I still have to know that because if you don't do that, if you don't dig into that, you're still going to produce shit, even with this tool. And it's the same with Figma, right? Figma is so easy to learn and it's so much better than what we used to do 15 years ago when you used to do interfaces in Photoshop. Photoshop as a tool was had such a higher threshold than Figma has. But still, if you don't know your visual foundations, if you don't know all of your kind of UX stuff, UI stuff, you are not going to produce anything nice with Figma. So there's no shortcut for these kind of essential underlying things. And it's the same here with Lottie Lab. You still have to dig deep into what easing means and how long an animation should last and all of these things. That's still something you got to learn. So yeah, they made it easier, but they did not take away the need to learn the essential thing.
I love it, dude. Yeah, that's such a good takeaway. Well, that is a perfect way to close out. I love how we tied it all back together. That's brilliant. So, Florian, before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you. Give yourself a plug. They might want coaching. They might want some of your subscribe to your newsletter, all that stuff. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, on LinkedIn, just type my name. You should find me, and you'll also get a lot of those links there. But if you want to get kind of my services and my newsletter, go to opendoorscareers.com and just subscribe for the newsletter. Check out the job board. We've got all the freshest junior design roles on there that are actually vetted. So it's not I'm going to put these kind of crazy roles out there saying junior, but asking for 5 years of experience. You won't find that. You're also going to find a lot of internships and even apprenticeships, even though those are rare. But if I find them, they are on there. And yeah, also keep an eye out on the platform in general, because I've got a lot of stuff coming there that's going beyond the job board and the newsletter. So best way to stay up to date is probably by just subscribing to that newsletter, and you're gonna learn a lot more about that. And yeah, I think that's covering it.
Right on. All right, Florian. Well, this has been amazing. I learned a lot. I think a lot of other people are going to learn quite a bit about this. Their own shortcuts. Do the hard work. Get your shit done and master your craft. I love it. All right, Florian. Thanks so much, man. And we're going to include all that stuff in the show notes, by the way. So if you want to find Florian, check out beyonduxdesign.com. Find the show notes, all the links to all this stuff. Subscribe to Florian's newsletter. Find him on LinkedIn. Follow him, all that good stuff. You won't be disappointed. Florian, thanks again for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, all right, y'all. That's it for Florian and me for today. I hope we helped to shed a little bit of light on shortcuts and why they might not be the best thing for your career in the long run. Remember, there are no shortcuts. There is no such thing as a shortcut. And if you find the shortcuts, you rely on the shortcuts, you're only hurting yourself in the long run. But I'm curious, have you run into this problem of relying on shortcuts? Did it burn you? Did you get burned? Did something happen? Or I don't know, maybe it actually worked out for you. I'd love to know. Let me know what you think on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I would love to hear from you. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That would help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, then for the love of God, tell them about it. Don't forget to check out the Beyond UX Design shop. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/shop to pick up some big, beautiful UX theme art prints and digital downloads you can print yourself. Get free shipping on all orders over $30 and use the code LISTENER to get 10% off your entire order. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/shop to get your print on. Help keep the show independent and ad-free. Check out beyonduxdesign.com/support to find out how. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free. You'll get rough transcripts and exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. You can get instant access to the video archives right now for as little as $5 a month. If you're looking for a UX course that's as unique as you are, do yourself a favor. Check out Mento Design Academy. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Mento and use the promo code BeyondUX200 for $200 off the course. Join Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. Remember to sign up for the newsletter. Check out all the past episodes along with all the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all. Meine Tochter ist sehr klug.
Right.
Yeah, is that good?
Ah, nice. That was good. Yeah. Yeah, my daughter's very smart. Yeah, that's perfect, man. Like, that's
was
very
that good?
good.
Yeah.